think we're just giving it a few more seconds for folks to come in. All righty, I think we've got everyone. So hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Nick Albanese with Salve Regina University, and I'm so pleased to be joined by three other admissions representatives who are going to introduce themselves in a bit. But in today's session, we are going to kind of chat about the college admissions process, give you our perspective as admissions professionals about some of the hot topics in the college admissions industry that are going on this year, especially with the impact of COVID. We'll also tell you a little bit about ourselves. Just so you know, we all represent AERO, the admissions representatives, or actually the regional admissions representatives of Oregon and Washington. So we are admissions professionals who either live or work near your area in Oregon and Washington and cover the Pacific Northwest. And our universities have made that investment in having professionals that are near your school districts. We understand the high schools, what it's like to come from your area to join our colleges, whether they are in the Pacific Northwest or out of state. So first up, I'd like to introduce Corey Kimmel from Oregon State. So Corey, if you'd like to give us your 1 to 2 introduction.
Yeah, I was gonna say we want to show the slides. But once those are pulled up, I will go a little into Oregon State, but my name is Corey Kimmel. I am our Portland Regional Admissions Advisor, so I live in the Portland area. If you are a student in Portland, Oregon, I would be the person that you would be reaching out to. If you live in Washington, our regional advisor is Jared. He lives up in Seattle and covers the entire state of Washington. But I am also an Oregon State alumna, so I absolutely love OSU. I bleed orange and black, and Oregon State is a really great university. We are one of the 7 publics within the state located in Corvallis, Oregon, which is only about an hour and a half south of Portland. We are the largest with about 33,000 students. That's total. Undergraduate on campus students are looking more 27,000 students. Corvallis is really a traditional college town. I loved being there as a student. I loved working on campus before moving up to Portland. Our campus has a lot to offer, not just academically with over 200 programs, but a lot of different student clubs and organizations. We have over 400 of those. We have a Greek life system. We are also Pac-12 athletics. And something really exciting that happened this summer is that we have a gymnast who is committed to start in the fall, who has now received a gold medal in Tokyo. So we're really excited to have her on campus. I was a gymnast, so I've just been really thrilled about that all summer. Cannot stop talking about it. But last but not least, Oregon State is also Oregon's research university. We last year in 2020 received over $450 million in research funding. We're one of 3 universities in the nation to have all 4 federal grants. So that's why it's a huge possibility for students to get involved in undergraduate research if they're interested in doing so. I do have on the slide a QR code, the comeback of QR codes this last year. If you are interested in any information about Oregon State, please feel free to scan that with your phone, fill out some quick information so we can get in contact with you. But I will go ahead, and I think, Nick, you're next, if I'm not mistaken. Pass on the baton.
Thank you so much. So hi again, everyone. Nick Albanese with Salve Regina University. Salve Regina means Hail Holy Queen in Latin, and it's part of a Catholic prayer that the Sisters of Mercy who founded us were very fond of. Salve is a small university with just over 2,000 students located in Newport, Rhode Island, the Ocean State. You're never more than 25 minutes from the water in Rhode Island, so we're the Ocean State. And we're actually right on the cliffs of the ocean, about a quarter-mile walk to the beach and a quarter-mile walk to historic downtown Newport. We have popular majors like business, administration of justice, chemistry, biology, of course, our direct entry nursing program, but then we have some unique programs. We have a Bachelor of Arts in Dance And we have an incredibly unique major called Cultural and Historic Preservation. Students study historic objects, buildings, and neighborhoods, and they learn about those histories, the meaning that they had at the time, and the meaning they've taken on over the years, and how to preserve those objects and buildings, which makes sense because we're located in one of the best kept historic districts in the US. We're Division III for athletics, lots of things to do on campus. We're well known for sailing, for rugby, ice hockey, football, lots of student-led organizations. We are a member of the Common Application, so it's pretty simple to apply. We're test optional. I'm based out west. I live in California, but I frequently travel to the Pacific Northwest. So I'd be happy to chat with you more. I also provided a QR code so you can scan that and you can find a link to book a meeting with me in the future. But I'll turn it over to our next presenter.
Hi everyone, my name is Erin Evans and I am the Portland Regional Admissions Counselor for Southern Oregon University. I, like Corey, am based in the Portland area. So if you attend a Portland metro area high school, Portland to Salem, and now to the coast, I've added that area, even up into Vancouver. I'll be visiting your high school this fall, whether virtually or in person. So basically, Southern Oregon University is located in Ashland, which is, of course, in Southern Oregon, right off the border of California. We're about 20 minutes from the border, so we get a glimpse of that nice California sunshine, less rain than the rest of the state usually sees. And Ashland's world known for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So we get tourism year round, but it's still not overly crowded, but there's a lot to do, very artsy. Lots of concerts. If you're a foodie, you'll have lots of delicious restaurants to try. It's also a very outdoorsy area. So Mount Ashland is only about 15 minutes away if you're interested in skiing and snowboarding. Rogue River is known for whitewater rafting. Crater Lake's pretty close. So lots of awesome outdoor opportunities within 20 minutes of campus as well, with hiking and biking and all that fun stuff. So our students and faculty really love to take advantage of our location for that reason. We're one of the smaller public schools in Oregon. So we have a little over 5,800 total students. About 4,000-ish of those are on campus. We have about 38 majors, over 100 areas of study. You can see some of our more notable, larger or newer majors on campus listed there. All of our majors are very interdisciplinary, meaning you'll be required to take some certain core classes within the program, but then you can really take the remainder of your classes that interest you the most. So you can really kind of personalize your path and take the classes that you think will fit your career goals the most. We also do not have any graduate students teaching any of our classes, so you have a really great opportunity to build relationships with your professors. And you'll have them as resources for research, internships, jobs, all that good stuff. There's a lot of benefits to having a good relationship with your professor. We are in the NAIA for varsity sports. So if you're interested in playing a sport competitively, that's about equivalent to NCAA Division II. We also have club sports and intramural sports, so kind of all levels of play. We have over 80 clubs on campus that range from academic clubs to athletic clubs, identity-based, just for fun clubs. So lots of awesome ways to get involved on campus. We have lots of awesome scholarships to help you cover the cost of tuition. And our application's right on our website, sou.edu. We have rolling admissions, so you can pretty much apply for admissions anytime between about August 1st and September if you want. For some reason, my contact information is not showing up here, but if you scan that QR code, like the others said, you can fill out our inquiry form to get more information. And I can also provide my contact information in the chat later if you're interested in that as well. And I will pass it over to Kara.
Awesome, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Can I say evening if it's 4 o'clock? I really don't know the rules if we're an afternoon or evening. So good evening, maybe afternoon. So glad that you are joining us. Doing an admissions panel is probably one of my most favorite things because you really get to get the nitty-gritty of advice and tips and tricks from the counselors that are living and breathing in the admissions office and multiple perspectives from multiple universities. So you can really educate yourself on next steps and how we can best support you as you transition into this next chapter, which is pretty exciting. So again, thank you so much for being here. My name, as mentioned, is Kara. I am one of the many admission counselors representing Washington State University. Our university really does want to ensure that our families have that personal connection and support through the admissions process. So you'll actually find that there's an admissions counselor assigned to every state, every school, and every area in the entire globe. So what you can do is on the bottom of this slide, you can see rep.wsu.edu. If you go to that website, you get to select from all sorts of different options. If you're a transfer student, if you're a freshman, if you're an international student, if you're from outside of the state of Washington, or if you're from the state of Washington, if you're interested in the Everett campus, our global campus, or our residential campus, the Pullman campus, you just click all of the things that you're interested in, and the individual admission counselor assigned to work with you and your families will pop up. So you'll have their photo, which I've been asking that they change mine. It's 15 years old, but it's there. So you can look at that, our email, phone number, all the different ways that you can reach out. Very, very slick to use that website, because again, we really want you to have that personal connection and support as you go through all of these next steps. Now, speaking about WSU specifically, I am from our Pullman campus, which is our residential campus and has about 19,000 students. But what makes our residential campus so unique is where it's located. We are located in Pullman, Washington, right along the eastern side of the state, really smacked up nice and tight right against Idaho. In fact, the University of Idaho is only 7 miles away from our campus. So, I mean, we're real close to the Idaho border. But the town of Pullman itself has about 32,000 people, meaning the students make up 2/3 of the total population of the town, making the average age of a person who lives in Pullman 22 years old. So a very young and vibrant community. But what does that mean for you as a student? It really means that you're surrounded by like-minded individuals that are all pursuing those same goals and aspirations of education. It also creates this sense of community and family where the whole town is really centered on building that support system for its students and for the university. And it creates a pretty unique atmosphere. And again, this benefit of what I like to say, the best of both worlds, which I think is a Hannah Montana song, which is, I'll steal that from Hannah Montana, but you get all of the perks of being at a big school. Tier 1 research, so the opportunity to have those hands-on exposures, over 200 different academic programs, Division I athletics, over 400 student clubs and activities that you get to embed yourself in. But because of that college town, that small town atmosphere, more the feeling of a small school where you really get to know your professors, the students, the town, and you're a part of a family. And that runs pretty deep for WSU Cougs, where there's this saying, no matter where you go in the world, if you're wearing something WSU, someone's going to stop you and someone's going to say, go Cougs. It's really cool. It's really unique, and really what makes WSU special for so many students. But I'll be honest, WSU is not for everybody, as in Oregon State might not be for everybody, but it may be the perfect school. And to really discover that, we encourage you to visit our campuses. We want you to have a gut reaction when you step foot on campus and engage within our community. You walk on campus and you might find, oh yeah, I love this here. And you just kind of vibe with it. Or there's tons of students who come to WSU and go, no, there's no water here, and that just doesn't suit them. So know that there really is a campus for everybody, but so much of making that decision is really engaging by visiting on campus. These presentations are a great place to start by asking questions and really finding out if we have the right academics, the right involvement opportunities. But truthfully, really getting to step foot on campus can make all the difference in the world, because quite honestly, our presentations, they're marketing pieces and they show a real part of campus. but engage with us in a variety of different ways so you can really make sure that you can see yourself there for the next 4, 5, 2 years. So very excited to connect with all of you and answering your questions. If you do want to engage with WSU a little bit more, just like my colleagues, I have that QR code right in the corner that you can scan, fill out an interest form, and that'll get you connected to learn more about WSU. But again, thank you. And I think we look forward to answering any questions or concerns that you might have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kara. So at this point, we're going to start chatting a little bit, and I'll start to give us some ideas of what we might want to talk about. For those of you in the audience, we love questions. That's what the session is all about. So please feel free to start typing those in the chat box. And if we don't get to them in the moment, we'll definitely try to get to all of them by the end of the presentation. But Kara, you gave us such great advice and gave the students some nice ideas about visiting campus and things like that. So maybe we could all start out by kind of giving a piece of advice to students of, how do you ask questions? I think sometimes students are not sure what questions to ask. Maybe it's the first time they've gone to a college fair. Maybe we have some people in this presentation that have just spent the last, year or two during COVID at home, and they're, going into their junior and senior year, and they really haven't had a lot of college exposure yet. So, what's maybe 1 or 2 things that you would be sure to ask a representative if you get a chance to see them in person or online? I don't know if Erin, if you'd like to start us out.
Sure. Yeah, Kara definitely touched on a lot of great points about that and about utilizing us. We're here to help you with everything, make the process as smooth as possible for you. And visiting campuses, that's always my number 1 recommendation to really see how you want or where you want to spend your next 4 or so years. But I guess as far as what I would ask would just be, I don't know. I was like, those are my usually 2 top answers. I mean, all of us, for the most part, unless it's something super, super specific, will have the same major. So instead of asking like, do you have this major? Do you have that major? Maybe asking for more details and like specifics about certain programs, like what makes your biology program unique, or at least at SOU, you can always get in contact with faculty in the specific departments to get firsthand knowledge from them. I know that's not possible everywhere, but that's something that you can always ask to ask the department specifically for more information.
That's a good point. I think a lot of students come up to us. I noticed, for example, you list on your slide that psychology is one of your notable majors, and I can't tell you how many students say, "Oh, how's your psychology department?" And I think a lot of us are, hopefully going to say good, but there's we love it when students, have a chance to do some research, especially if you're at that stage of like interviewing, where you can maybe know the names of some programs or majors or things like that. But maybe asking questions about, what are the outcomes for your psychology majors? Is it a Bachelor of Science versus a Bachelor of Art? Because the types of classes you're going to have are going to vary, and the focus on, getting right out there and applying psychology versus maybe having more of a statistics and research kind of career and that kind of thing. But Kara, what's you've already given so many excellent pieces of advices, but anything else you would say when you're at the college fair and things to ask the admissions rep?
I have so many. So how much time do we have? More? So actually, this is kind of my jam. I love this question because so often we find choosing a college is really hard. Because I don't know if you guys caught, but all 4 of us sound very similar. We all have amazing academic programs. We all have amazing things for you to do. And so it can kind of go, aren't you all the same? And how am I supposed to choose one of you? And so I actually went to different college campuses, and I very creepily went up to students and said, "Hi, I'm an admissions counselor and I have some questions for you." And luckily, students were willing to engage with me a little bit. And I asked them, how did you get here? Not did you swim, bike, or run, but how did you make the decision that this school was the right school for you? And there was really kind of 6 different categories that they covered. And what I tell students is base your questions really on those 6 categories. The first one is location, size, and environment. Where is it located on a map? Does it make sense for you to travel there and back? Does it fit with your financial budget? Meaning if you can't fly to Hawaii 3 times a year, picking a school in Hawaii is maybe a little bit more challenging. Or that's definitely with your financial aid and your scholarships, a great fit because it's sunny and you're sick of living in Seattle where it's one season all year. So that location, environment, and then that campus visit, which we already talked about. So where is it located? What really makes up that student population? Does it fit your personal interest? And then visiting to make sure you vibe. Academic programs is another one, is do you have the right program for what I want to pursue? And more importantly, there's maybe a few of you in here sitting here going, cool, I don't know what that is. That's awesome. In fact, we love when our students come in with an open mind, but make sure the school supports that. And that, hey, if I don't know what I want to do, what does that mean here? And most of us will tell you, we love it. We have great programs for you to support you in that exploration, and you're actually going to still be able to graduate on time. So find out, do we have what you're interested in? And then can we support you if you're still exploring? The second piece of that question, which we kind of touched base on, was how are you going to be supported in that program? Because those of you that are in here, my guess is you'd like to actually get a job, probably, maybe, which means you got to graduate and then you got to be employable. So asking about those outcomes, or think about right now in high school, how are you successful? Do you meet with your teacher one-on-one? Do you have a tutor? Do you have an IEP or 504 that supports your academic endeavors? Ask very targeted questions. Are you going to support A, B, or C? Because that's what I need to learn. Am I going to get to know my professor? You really get to ask targeted questions of how am I going to be successful? And is that university going to support me being a successful student? And then what resources are you going to give me to enhance my degree? Am I going to be able to do research? Am I going to get to study abroad to get a global perspective? Am I going to have internship opportunities so I get to do the job before I actually leave the university? So academic programs, what's available, but how can we support that academic program to make you a marketable individual? The other part is interests. I know no one has their camera on, so darn it, but if you have a thumbs up reaction, maybe that will work. How many of you want to have a little bit of fun while you're in college? So far, nobody. Nobody wants to have fun. Okay, awkward. Oh, yay, 2 of you. Love it. Okay, so some of you want to have a little bit of fun. This is actually a great and good thing. We want you to make memories. And I would love to hear from my colleagues too, but when someone asks you, what was your most favorite part of college? Did any of you say chemistry class? No. Maybe the football games, maybe the clubs that we were part of, our friends that we met. We made memories, and that's what made our experiences so unique. And research actually shows the more engaged you are in the campus community, the more likely you are to graduate. So you having responsible, reasonable fun does actually help build those connections and help support that transition. So please ask us about the fun things. Ask us about what you enjoy doing and make sure that you get to continue to pursue those. Other questions, the 2 key things are admissions criteria. Do I have the appropriate foundation to sit in your classrooms and start successfully? That's really what admissions criteria is all about, is making sure that you're ready to go, that you're not going to feel super overwhelmed being at our institutions, and that you're going to sit in English 101 and be ready to rock and roll. So ask us about admissions and what we look for, because it's going to tell you if you're a good academic fit starting out with us. And then financially, this one's tricky because finances is important. Families, if we have parents in here, are probably going, yes, let's talk about that. But it's really important to not use finances initially, because we can go counselor to counselor and we can tell you what our annual cost to attend is, and most of you are going to have a heart attack because it's a big and scary number. So when we first look at that number, it tells you what the sticker price of our institution is, but it doesn't tell you what your family is going to need to pay to come to our institutions. So we want you to make educated information to make that decision. So when you're asking questions, ask about what the cost is, but how are you going to determine my individual cost? Then we can talk to you about scholarships. We can talk to you about financial aid, and then actually work with you individually if you decide to move forward in the process to show you what your costs will come to our institutions. So I know, Nick, that was a really long-winded answer to what questions do I ask? But like I said, it's one of my favorite topics. So location and size, academic programs and support, involvement opportunities, admissions foundation, financial aid. If you base questions kind of off of these main categories, you're going to be in a really good place to start.
Corey, anything you'd want to add to that?
One thing, because otherwise everything was covered. That was amazing, Kara. That was great. I would say just the one thing, especially not everybody that works for a university is an alumni of the university. I am, but I attended a while ago, and campus has changed so much over the years. I could definitely talk about my experience as a student, but you should ask about student stories too. I think I love talking about what our current students are doing, because I mean, at every university, they're all awesome and they're so dedicated and intelligent and innovative. And I think just hearing about what those students are doing and those opportunities, I think is hands down one of the best things to ask, so that you can get an idea of what current students are doing. And I know it was really nailed in, but maybe to put like that final nail in, just get yourself to campus and visit. I think it's so important if you can. Like Kara was mentioning, I was one of those students my junior year that was dead set on a college that I was going to go to, and I visited and I panicked. I did not like it. It was not the right fit, and I just kind of looked like a deer in headlights, and I didn't know what to do. Then I visited Oregon State. For me, everything was fine. So it was totally okay. I moved on, but it definitely can be that feel of the campus and what's involved, who's there, can really make a difference. So I would say just make sure you're trying to get to campus, but also ask about the students and what they're involved in, because I love talking about it. I think our students are all super cool, very impressive, a lot more impressive than I ever was as a student. So
yeah, the only other thing I can think to add is, utilize us, your admissions counselors. If you go to admissionsarrow.com, you can get the full list of the dozens and dozens of admissions representatives that, again, work for colleges, whether it's in the Pacific Northwest or all the way across the country, like my institution. But we represent colleges that have made that investment in having counselors who come to your area, that know your schools, that understand what the transcripts look like at your school, and what those honors classes are called, and all of those things. So we can help you, guide you and navigate you through this process. But moving on to the next topic. So we talked a little bit about, that fit with college, and part of that fit is wanting it to be a place where you're comfortable living for the next 4 years. So I'm kind of curious, how did COVID impact the student experience on your campuses? Did you have to go online? Was it for a certain period of time? And then what are you doing as a university moving forward? Would anyone like to start out with that?
I can dive in a little bit. So last year with COVID, we really made an effort to give students a little bit of a choice, especially those students that were first coming in, if they wanted to still have an on-campus, at least like residential experience. Our courses did go mostly virtual, with the exception of some labs, especially those research labs that are on campus. Some students and faculty were still in those, especially because we had our Trace OSU testing. So Oregon State really took, and students really, like I talked about student stories, really spearheaded our trace testing within Corvallis and Lynn and Benton counties, so that they were able to kind of track COVID, how it was impacting the community, where many breakouts were happening, and just make sure that we were doing that contact tracing and keeping students safe. So students did have a choice if they wanted to continue living on campus or not, or go home. We did give them that option. We had students staying on campus in our residence halls, just taking their courses virtually. Moving forward into this year, we are really excited to hopefully have students back on campus. That is the plan as of right now. But we definitely, and I think every university does as well, have their own website dedicated to all of our updates as we get them, as well as any like cleaning protocols, testing protocols, anything that we are requiring from students, so that they can stay up to date on that information, because I think we all know over this last year, it has been so hard to stay up to date on everything as it changes so rapidly. But we are just really trying to keep students safe. That is our priority. I know for Oregon State, moving forward, all students, staff, and faculty on any Oregon State location, that includes all of our extension campuses, are required to have the vaccination and be fully vaccinated. So that means the 2 doses if you're Pfizer or Moderna. So we do really want to trust the science and keep our students safe. And then depending on how it moves forward, we'll make those calls, but I'm really hoping to just keep moving forward this summer. And in terms of previous with admissions, our application does now have a section that asks about what your school did for COVID grading. We are taking that into account. And because of that, our scholarships are now holistically reviewed as well, since GPAs are kind of all across the board, depending on what your high school did. And we know that that was out of the student control. And of course, we'll accept passing grades on transcripts if that's what the high school decided to do. So for us, that's kind of where Oregon State was at. And I'm across the board, it's different for everybody. So I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in.
Erin, do you want to stay in Oregon and talk about your institution?
Yeah, I think pretty much everything Corey said is the same for us. We still had students living on campus last year if they chose to, even incoming first-year students, but all of our classes, well, I guess 90% of our classes were online, remote learning. So they were just living in the resident halls and doing that. As of right now, like Corey said, we are planning to be fully open in the fall for in-person learning with our resident halls completely open and all of that. We'll just have, the mask requirements, cleaning procedures, socially distance, all that. Like Corey said, again, we all have websites that keeps all that up to date as much as possible. We've all learned how to be flexible in this climate. So we're hoping it can go on that way for the fall, but we'll see. And then, yeah, of course, we're accepting pass-fail grades. We have a very holistic view when we're looking at applications. We do not require SAT or ACT scores and will not require them going forward. So that's kind of a big change. But yeah, I think it's pretty similar in Oregon between all the universities. So just keep up to date on our websites for any changes with that.
And will you be requiring vaccinations?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, we will. We are requiring for all students, staff, and faculty with, of course, there's exemptions if you need them, but yes, we will be requiring them for this coming year.
Great. And Kara?
So actually, very, very similar, almost identical to our Oregon schools. Actually, I don't really think there's anything different. We also require the vaccination, but also provide exemptions for medical, religious, or personal reasons, but there is documentation that has to be completed with that. We are returning in person, but as we were discussing earlier, it really is week by week. We're hoping for the best, but obviously following all safety precautions in place by our state, because the safety and health of our students, our faculty, are of course the utmost of importance. As far as incoming students, the most important thing is knowing admissions is actually changing to the students' benefit. There's some exciting things actually that happened this past year with some of the complications in the pandemic, one of which is test scores. For WSU, similar to the Oregon schools, we are no longer requiring the SAT or ACT. It is no longer a factor in admissions or our scholarships, which I think is pretty fantastic. So I'm really excited about that piece. And also when we are reviewing admissions applications, we understand there was a pandemic and we know that grades are going to look different and families may face many hardships. And we are understanding of that. We are allowing students to submit supplemental documents or essays that really speak to some of those hardships that may have occurred academically, emotionally. We know mental health was hit really, really hard. So please know that we're here to work with you in that process. And we are not trying to be detrimental to a student's admissions because of things that happened during COVID.
And I would just echo much of what was said. It was pretty similar for Salve Regina. So, there were parts of the year that we had to go virtual, but we were able to be open for a large portion of the pandemic. We're fully planning on being open next year. We are requiring vaccinations with the same kind of exemptions for students for certain reasons. We've always done a very holistic review, and that actually I wanted to kind of clarify what that word holistic means. So, some colleges will have more of a formula review for their applications where, you're kind of plugging in numbers like a GPA, a test score, those kinds of things. To determine if you're admitted or not. There's sort of a grid for the scholarships, and that's kind of your acceptance and your scholarship. Other colleges will still utilize that formula, but then we'll also factor in other things about you as a student and a person. So things like those recommendation letters, essays, your list of activities, if you've shown leadership, if you've demonstrated that you have a sort of a connection with the university's mission. If you have shown interest, sometimes that's also factored in. It's called demonstrated interest. So a lot of those things can make up a holistic review. So that's something that Salve's always done. And that was kind of, I think, a benefit for us in this process. We've always been test optional, but it was nice to be able to not have to kind of wait on some students for test scores and just be able to read their applications this year. So we're kind of happy about being able to continue that in the future. So a lot of you have mentioned the test scores. So can we do a raise of hands? Is anyone fully test blind, meaning you are, no one can even submit scores to you. You're not going to consider them. Okay, interesting. So Washington State is test blind. For Southern Oregon and Oregon State, I assume that we're all test optional. So, students have the option to submit their test scores, but they're not required. Aaron or Corey, do either of you have any like scholarships or certain programs where you do still need a test score, or fully test optional for everything?
We have one program that's our accelerated baccalaureate, or degree in 3, where it depends on your GPA whether we need a test score or not, which I know that they were flexible with it this year, so I'm not sure what the plan is with that going forward. But as of right now, for students that are interested in that, if they have less than a 3.4, but higher than a 3.2, we need a test score as well to be considered for that program. But everything else, admissions and scholarships, test scores are just a supplemental piece for admissions and not looked at all for scholarships.
So similar to Southern Oregon, for admissions, we are fully test optional. Students do not have to submit them. We'll only use them to benefit a student. So if students don't submit them or have a low score, they will not be disadvantaged in any way. Our scholarships are also holistically reviewed, do not need test scores for those. Exception is kind of our presidential scholarship, which is our most competitive scholarship for in-state Oregon students. Test scores can help a student if they've done really well on that. So that's something that I do kind of recommend, but otherwise we do have a scholarship portal that admitted students have access to, and all of the Oregon state-based scholarships do not require them. But the portal does allow students to apply for like external or third-party scholarships. And so those may vary just depending. So I just like to give that kind of warning that, it's the portal through Oregon State, but they're not actually Oregon State scholarships. So they may require those test scores.
Yeah, so I think the theme here that you're hearing from a lot of us is ask your admissions counselor, get to know us, ask us questions, because our processes are going to have, slightly different nuances to them, of what's required, what's not required, what's optional. One tip that I would have is, I think sometimes students can feel a little bit overwhelmed by just the sheer number of colleges and options that they have. So as you're checking out colleges, I would suggest having a spreadsheet, right? Have one tab. It could be very basic, just like the university name, maybe just a couple of columns where you can put some general notes about maybe any standout academic programs or fit there, any standout social things, like if they have Greek life or if they have certain clubs or activities that you really connect with, really basic, the location, that kind of thing, just so you kind of remember what places you've already checked out. And then as you get towards senior year, kind of going through your list and thinking about what colleges do I really want to look further into, that I want to take the tour, that I want maybe visit campus or join some of their virtual programs. And then that can start to be your short list, and eventually, hopefully, you'll apply to those colleges. And we have a whole presentation about, building that balance list. So I don't want to go too much into that, but just to say, I think that will help you to feel a little organized. But then at that point, once you have that short list, you can hopefully have some columns where you have the admissions counselor contact information. And then those are the schools where you really want to connect with those admissions officers, get to know them. If they offer interviews, do we all offer interviews or the ability to do an interview? No? Or how about just a meeting with you? Is that a possibility? Can students book a meeting with you? Yeah. So if you have a chance to even just connect with your counselor, even if it's not like an evaluative interview, I think, that's always going to be to your benefit, because you're going to understand what you need to do. And there may be things that you're unaware of. There may be certain scholarships that you had no idea you would have qualified for that might not be, proudly listed on the website. So connect with us, get to know your counselors, especially if we're on your short list. So I just kind of want to take a moment as well and have us kind of go through what are some ways that students can connect with us, whether it's coming to campus or virtually. What are some suggestions of how they can kind of get to know a little bit more about your university? And I'm sorry, Kara, do you want to start?
No one ever wants to unmute and talk over somebody. That's one of the weird things about Zoom. No one really knows who's going and when. So we'll maybe figure it out. So as far as connecting with the universities, we already mentioned before the value and the importance of a campus visit, but the type of campus visits are going to vary greatly depending on the university. But I would go ahead and feel comfortable saying that pretty much every university has a visit website that is specific to campus visitation, where we really highlight the different ways and opportunities, dates, and times that you can come and visit our campuses. Or you can even connect with the admissions counselor and they can go over some of the best fit visit opportunities. So for example, WSU has an admitted student visit program that awards $1,000 scholarship if you decide to come to WSU. So you get to come visit campus. It's tailored to students who are admitted, to really helping you decide if WSU is the right fit for you. But then if you decide it is, that's $1,000 in your pocket. It's probably the easiest scholarship you'll ever earn. So we would really want to articulate and express what a great visit that is for students that are going through that admissions process. Also a benefit, and it's weird to say benefit of a pandemic all in one sentence, but I would say a benefit is the robust options that are coming out virtually, because we understand visiting some of our campuses is not super easy and you may only get one shot to come in person, but you can do a lot now virtually to really gain great information about academic programs, getting connected with an admissions counselor. We now do virtual appointments where you can meet with us one-on-one. So not only can you kind of do some, I would say, pre-work virtually and learning more about the different universities, attending events like this, then you can learn about those in-person options. But I would say start with the visit website. I use Google for everything. I just go Washington State University visit, and the first thing that pops up is a visit website. I hate going through school websites. I don't know about anybody else, but ours is kind of a nightmare. So I just say Google it. Google exactly what you're looking for. Chances are it pops right up. And then of course you can always reach out to your admissions counselors if there's any complications, and we will walk you through it step by step, I promise.
Anyone want to add anything to that?
I was just going to say as well, for us admissions advisors, a huge part of our job is like connecting with you at your high schools, and normally in the fall that would be in person, and we don't know what that's going to look like this year. I know it's also going to depend on the high school and the county and the state and travel regulations. So a lot is kind of on the fence right now, but if you get an email that says we're coming to you, whether it's in person or virtual, it's usually a pretty quick presentation, but you get a chance to, ask us questions, hear more about the university. So I think those are also really great ways to get in contact. But like Kara said, Kara's just crushing it today. Use Google to find the websites, and we have our like in-person visit site and our virtual site, so that you can kind of help narrow down which way you want to visit campus and get that information. So there's a ton of resources out there, and our colleges are doing their own virtual visits. Some are even offering virtual lectures, so you can kind of get an idea or a feel for what that would be like as a student. So there are just so many opportunities, and if you don't know how to find them, again, you can email us and ask. That is our job, is to help you out with that. But I don't know, Nick, do you have anything else to add?
The only thing that I would add is some colleges, and this is another reason to get to know your admissions counselor, will offer things like fly-in programs. So for us, if you're an admitted student from the Pacific Northwest, we can actually reimburse your plane ticket to visit campus. And so that's a great opportunity to actually come to the area to see if it's the right school for you. So just, ask your admissions counselor. They'll tell you about these opportunities. Or I thought it was so cool that Kara mentioned that scholarship. Like, who would have known about that if you didn't talk to Kara about, Washington State University giving you a scholarship for just visiting. So definitely things to keep in mind there. So at this point, I think we can open it up to questions from the audience. So please type those questions in, but I already see that we've had some discussion about gap years. So maybe we could all take a moment to talk about, how we handle that with our students. I'll say, so at Salve Regina, if you are admitted, so you go through the process, you're a senior in high school, you get your acceptance letter from us, you can choose to defer your admission. You actually do not have to commit to Salve. You don't have to pay a deposit to defer, which I think is kind of unusual. I think a lot of colleges actually do require you to be a deposited student, but we can kind of ask each other what we do. And we allow you to defer up to 1 full year. So you pretty much have until, May of the next year to decide if you want to enroll for the following fall. So I think we have a pretty generous deferral policy. Any scholarships that you've received from the admissions, through the admissions process, you can keep those scholarships going into the next year. The one thing to keep in mind is that our tuition does tend to go up, usually maybe around a percentage point or so each year. And those scholarships, that's your amount for 4 years. So, if you receive the presidential scholarship and you're talking to friends in your school and all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, why is there $1,000 difference? That might be why for that. But does anybody else want to go next to talk about your deferral policies and any advice for gap year students?
Yeah, that's pretty much the same as with us. Students can apply. You can either commit or not commit. Doesn't matter. If you commit, it will roll over, and you can defer for up to 1 full year. There is that stipulation that your scholarship could change a little bit as far as the merit scholarships go, but it's a pretty simple, common process especially now, to defer for a year. And then if for some reason, or if you decided to take like community college classes or something during that gap year, you would just need to make sure to send us those transcripts, because then we might reevaluate your application to see if your status changed at all. But again, it's a pretty simple process.
Yeah, ours, we have a couple different options. So that is where I definitely would recommend getting in contact with your admissions advisor, and we can walk through the best option. Some students can apply now, defer for a year. They can apply after a year, but if they are plan to take community college courses, at least in the state of Oregon for the first year, we have a really robust dual enrollment program where students can be dual enrolled in their community college of their choice and Oregon State, and they can actually start entirely at the community college first, but still be a dual enrolled student. So that's a process we definitely would work through with the student. So it just really kind of depends. And so we definitely recommend getting into contact with us so we can really figure out what that right choice is. And that dual enrollment program, if students were awarded a scholarship, we hold on to that for them until they're ready to start at Oregon State. Whereas if they waited to apply, that scholarship amount would probably look a little different. So definitely just kind of depends. And that's why it's important to get in contact with your advisor and ask those questions.
So I'm going to say, unfortunately, WSU is still working out our gap year policy. Gap years is not something that we've traditionally accepted. What that means is if students applied, were admitted, and decided to come to a following term, we just canceled their current application and had them reapply when they were ready to attend. And then they would be reevaluated. But with COVID, these policies are starting to change. So right now, we're not entirely sure what our deferment or gap year policy is going to look like. So this is very much a please connect with your admissions counselor, because we are working with our students individually to make sure that we are setting them up for success to start at WSU when they're ready. So more to come, hopefully good news on the way.
I think this also brings up another good point, because as we talked about this, we were talking a little bit about dual enrollment and your status and that sort of thing. So I think, a lot of our discussion is kind of focused on that, that traditional, first year student coming, graduating high school and becoming a first year student at your university. But we know that that's not the path for all students. And as Corey mentioned, there are some really great options in the Pacific Northwest with Running Start, dual enrollment programs, or even just taking college credits in high school, and that could affect your status. So maybe we should just take a moment to talk about what does it mean to be a transfer student, or what criteria do you have to fill to be considered a transfer student at your institution? So at Salve Regina, those dual enrollment programs are not as popular on the East Coast. So, that is something that could change for us in the future. But currently, you have to be, no matter how many college credits you've taken in high school, if you haven't graduated yet and you're applying to Salve, you're still considered a first-time freshman. So you can transfer in up to 16 college credits, even if you've taken, let's say, a full associate degree worth of credits in high school. You can only transfer 16 of those credits if you're a first-time freshman. But if you take one college class after graduating high school, now you're a transfer student, and you could potentially transfer all of your credits in, depending on, again, what transfers with which course equivalencies. But so for us, you're considered a transfer student when you've had at least one college class after graduating high school, or getting your GED. But anyone want to go next on who is considered a transfer student at your institution?
I think this is definitely going to be another thing that's asked the school. For us at SOU, you are considered a transfer student if you have completed 24 semester or 36 quarter credits and are at least 1 year after graduating high school. We are very accepting of college credit. So pretty much everything you've taken at a accredited college or university that is 100 level or higher will transfer to us in one way or the other. So you won't lose any of your credits that you've taken in high school through dual enrollment or Running Start or anything like that. But you would just be considered a freshman with college credit for things like scholarships and our housing requirements. So a little different than Nick in that aspect. So again, checking with each school you're interested in. But yeah, that's our policy.
Yeah, again, check in. Ours is even a little different than Southern Oregon. For students after they graduate high school, if they then have either 24 quarter or 16 semester credits, then they're considered a transfer student. But if students are in Running Start taking that dual credit for high school and college credits, they will still be a first year student, similar to SOU in this aspect, just coming in with college credits. So there are some different nuances. So it is really important just to, if you have those credits, you just don't really know what you're classified as, let us know. We have the answers for those questions. Absolutely.
Shocker. WSU is a little bit of everything. As in, we're a little bit different as well. So you will apply as a freshman if you've taken college credit while in high school, no matter how much college credit you've earned. However, if you take even one college class after the summer of high school graduation, you are now a transfer student. The benefit of taking college credit while still in high school is we will accept all of that credit. However, for admissions and housing purposes, you are still considered a freshman. I tell students, again, best of both worlds. You get all the benefits, the scholarships, the support of being a freshman, but technically when you start, you could be a sophomore or junior standing with your credits. So you get a little bit of everything, which is really nice, because scholarships sometimes can change whether you're coming in as a transfer student or a freshman. But again, that's what we're here for. We're here to make it less confusing. We're here to tell you all the benefits and all the great things that are coming from the classes that you've taken, and also making sure that those classes are beneficial and are going to come to us in a meaningful way. I will say, if you are taking any sort of college credit, you should know who your admissions counselor is, because we want to make sure that those are going to save you money and time, not necessarily be costly or not beneficial to your overall goal. So use us, because that's why they pay us the big bucks, right? To help you out with all of your transfer needs.
In case y'all can't tell, we just really want you all to email us and ask your questions. We haven't said it enough.
This does make me think of another thing that sometimes students might be curious about as well. I think a lot of students, if you were to ask a student in high school, what's your GPA, they'll say a certain number, but depending on how we as admissions reps look at your transcript, we could have a pretty different number than what the student thinks, because some of us recalculate transcripts. So we have our own methodology behind, what a B means or a B plus, and if we give a higher weight to honors classes or some of those college level classes. But maybe a show of hands, who recalculates every transcript that you see?
I don't personally, but our office does.
Gotcha. And then do some of your schools recalculate some transcripts, or do you always just take what the student puts?
WSU will recalculate depending. So for example, if you're coming from California and you're on a 5-point scale, we calculate it into a 4.0 scale. But as we mentioned, that holistic process is we don't necessarily hard recalculate, but we definitely understand if you're taking an AP compared to a running start, compared to a regular class, and how that is going to impact your GPA, where all GPAs are not created equal. We might not hard copy, like calculator it, but mentally, we recalculate a lot of things depending on your course curriculum.
Erin?
Yeah, I think similar to what Kara said, our evaluators will recalculate everything.
Yeah, and for us, we sort of have our definitions about what a B is. So for us, like a B is a 3.0, and a B plus is a 3.2, for example. So if the school transcript, when we look at the school profile, if they have similar criteria about what's a B, especially if there's an honors or APs or those kinds of things, we will take that GPA, but otherwise we recalculate it. We do give higher weights to honors classes and even higher weights to college level classes. So for those students that are in running start or in some of those classes, even if you can't necessarily transfer all of those credits in, you will still have a benefit in our process. You'll probably qualify for a higher scholarship. You'll show that resilience. I think all of us would probably agree that a B plus in an AP is sometimes even better than an A minus in a CP class, because you've shown that you've taken that extra initiative, that you hopefully worked really hard for that B plus, and you're doing college level work in high school. And I mean, that's the biggest thing we're trying to figure out is, can you do the work in college? So if you're actually taking some college level classes, that's fantastic. I think we need to wrap it up in just a minute or two, but any final questions from the audience, please feel free to type them in. We can try to rapidly get to them. But otherwise, maybe we could all just kind of go through and 30 seconds, any last piece of advice that you'd want to give, or anything that was mentioned that you wanted to bring up. Corey, if you want to.
Sure, I'll start, and I apologize for my cat that is getting into so many things behind me right now. But I would say my biggest pieces of advice are just first off, ask questions, because the process can be confusing, and we all know that. And so that is our job, is to help you through it. And we love doing it. And then I would say stay organized. Nick kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but any sort of spreadsheet, any schools you've looked at, what they have, dates and deadlines, have you applied, write down your passwords, because we're all going to ask for different password requirements. So just make sure you're staying organized. And then once you've applied, check back into all of those application portals, because that's where we are sending all of that information to keep in touch with you. So keep an eye on your email, make sure you're checking that. I think those are all of my biggest pieces of advice through this. But number one always is just ask questions, get in touch with us. We're here to help you out.
Definitely. And I know email is not everyone's favorite thing, but we will send you lots of emails. So make sure to check that at least a couple times a week, if not daily. But like we've said many, many times, visit us, visit as many schools as you can to just see what campus you feel most at home with. I think every big piece of advice that I usually give has already been given here today. So I just want to reiterate that one again.
That is all amazing advice. So I will say same. Please do all of those things. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, can you tell us the end of the presentation? I go, I had it. And now that I've said that, it's gone. So we'll just go with do those things.
Absolutely. I also agree with all of you. And I'll just, kind of wrap us up by adding, hopefully you have fun with this process. As high school students, so many decisions have kind of been made for you, up until this point in your life. And this is really, you're getting to this point where you're starting to make the decisions. You're deciding what college you're going to, what classes you're going to take, what you're going to study, and where you're going to go with your life. And that can be a little scary, but it can also be kind of fun. So hopefully this is a self-reflective time where, you're kind of figuring out what you really want, and use us as guides to help you figure those questions out. Thank you all so much. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to all of the students that have been listening to this. Again, go to admissionsarrow.com to see the remaining sessions this week, and to get our contact information. Everybody stay safe, take care, and thank you so much. Bye.